You are listening to How to Get Over Your Ex, episode number 229, From Depressed to Empowered. Welcome to How to Get Over Your Ex, a podcast on getting over your ex without it just taking time. I'm your host, Breakup Coach Dorothy. Let's turn your pain into power and your heartbreak into happy. Hello, beautiful Bravehearts. How is everyone doing today? I'm so excited. Today we have a wonderful guest named Melissa on. She has just wrapped up the Get Over Your Ex program, and I wanted her to come on and share her breakup journey. She was so powerful. Everything that she shared was so insightful. I feel like her breakup journey is going to be unbelievably helpful to everyone listening. And so I'm really excited to dive in. So Melissa, I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming on. I know the Bravehearts are going to love you, and I know they're just going to be so grateful that you came on and share your story.
Thanks for having me, Dorothy.
Yes. All right. So let's get started with where you're from, because for us in the United States, we're going to be like, you have an accent. Where are you from? Tell us everything. Can you tell us who you are, where you're from, what you do, that kind of thing?
Sure. So I'm over the other side of the world in Australia, in Melbourne. I'm 53. I'm a mum of two teenagers. Um, yeah.
I love it.
Hmm.
So good. So then why don't you give us a background? Like, give us the background of your breakup story. How long were you dating? What happened? Did he break up with you? Did you break up with him? Give us the tea.
So I split up from the dad of my kids about 12 years ago, but we stayed really close as a family, still did lots of things together. And I didn't date for a long time. And then I met my ex about 18 months ago. And it started very quickly and strongly. I was swept off my feet. And we had a great honeymoon period. But after the first few months, a few little things started to come up and escalate. So I think that my first ex, the dad of my kids, we'd never really fully processed the separation. And so he took this new relationship very badly. And then I felt a lot of guilt and anxiety. My kids took it badly. My son in particular found it very hard to accept someone new. So it all became quite a stressful situation. But one of the things that I loved about my ex that I met 18 months ago, he had this great life that I envied. Got an apartment in the city. His kids were grown up, left home. He had a great social life. He loved eating out, going to see bands, and we had a lot of fun. But with all the problems going on with this new relationship, my kid's dad moved away from Melbourne, and I became more of a full-time single mum. And so in order for my ex and I to spend time together, he was spending time with me at my house in the suburbs with my kids. And it was stressful with my son. And eventually he kind of realized it wasn't where he wanted to be. He wasn't leading the life that he wanted to lead. He didn't know when things were going to change with me, and he felt like he couldn't wait. So, yeah, that was devastating for me.
Obviously, like, so hard. You find this person who opens up the portal of possibility for you. You, like you said, you envied his life. You're like, oh my gosh, that's like the life that I want to be living in some regards, right? But how do we
Yeah.
integrate the two very different kind of lifestyles?
Yeah.
Because you also love your son, right? You love being able to be there for him. And how do we make both of those work together? And that's so devastating to realize that someone is like not willing to work on that and figure it out and kind of come to a combined decision of how do we might integrate these two things together.
Yes,
So
that's right.
difficult. So then tell us a little bit about kind of what were your biggest obstacles? So obviously we're devastated, but what were like the big, oh my God, what am I going to do moments for you that either led you to the podcast or led you to finding and looking up resources and help?
Mm. Well, at the time of the breakup, I was so distraught and just obsessed and felt like I couldn't just focus on the things I needed to in my life.
Yeah.
I found your podcast and then just started listening 24/7 just to help me get through the day. And it was amazing. Uh, and so there were two things. So one of them was the breakup. But the other thing was I have a long history of depression. And, for years and years, I've been seeing counselors, and it just felt like I was on this endless cycle and always feeling like I wasn't good enough. I wasn't worth it. I had no self-esteem, no self-confidence. And a big part of your podcasts were about working on the bigger and better life for me, myself, regardless of the breakup. So that was really something that I wanted to do. And I was sick of nothing changing in my life. It was just, I kept coming back to the same place.
Is it
Uh,
so frustrating? And I feel like when you've been struggling with the same problem for so long, you're just like, what is going on? Am I broken? Is it just me? Like, why can't I figure this out? And you see other people around you doing it, and you're kind of like, what's going on? Like, I feel like I'm missing something. Did you feel that way? I feel that way sometimes.
yeah, absolutely. But I was at that stage where I was just identifying with being this kind of person and
Mm.
adapting my whole life around it. So just staying safe in work and relationships so that I wasn't taking risks. And just, yeah, I was organizing my life around this is all I can do. So I'm just going to do this.
Yeah.
And I just I wasn't achieving anything that I wanted to. I wasn't where I wanted to be. And I just felt like I had no control over changing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then I guess because there had to be a shift at some point that was like, I can change this. There is hope. There is something that I can do about it. When did that happen? How did that happen?
Well, listening to your podcast, I'd never really contemplated coaching before. I'd done counselling,
Hmm.
so I started to look into life coaching. And the more I was listening to you, I don't know, I felt this connection. Everything just resonated, and it was a big decision
Hmm.
to buy into the program. But I just was at that stage where I knew I had to do something different. So I'm really going to go all in and do this.
Yeah. So I'm going to go all in and do this is really like the thought that propelled you into making a different decision to get a different result.
Yes.
What was the
Yeah.
feeling? Can you tell us more about like what the feeling was? Like, I'm going all in to get a different result. How did that feel to you when at the time?
It was kind of scary,
Yeah.
but also it was the first feeling of empowerment that I was actually doing something to change.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I love that so much. I mean, I'm glad they're bringing up counseling. Do you have any thoughts on like what do you feel like is the difference between coaching and counseling from your perspective?
Well, for me, and I don't know if it was just me, but for me, it felt like I was just perpetuating it, like um, sitting in that mindset where these are my limitations. It's like depression. If I have depression, it's a lifelong thing. This is what I need to do to get around it.
Mm.
Whereas with you and the coaching, just getting into the actual thoughts, I'd never realized that I had control over my thoughts and I could change them and choose to think what I wanted to believe.
Mm-hmm.
I was just sort of assuming, well, this is how it is and this is me.
And
And I
then we have
can't
to
change it.
cope, right? And then we have to cope with that versus like we could do something about it. You know
Yeah.
what? I was talking with another coach actually the other day because I'm an advocate of therapy. I think also coaching pairs well with therapy. I have nothing bad to say about therapy. However, in the last year of like, well, in 2023, when I was like when I went through so much trauma, I did hire a therapist. And what I found, I didn't stay too long because what I found was that when I was in therapy, I noticed myself slipping out of thoughts create feelings. And I don't know why that was happening. Like it could have been the form of therapy I was in or the therapist specifically that I was using. Like I know it's not every therapist or every form of therapy, but I just realized that I kept feeling more of like a victim to my circumstances and then being validated that I was a victim to circumstances instead of, oh no, like we can do something about this. And it's just a different vibration for me. But
Yes, definitely. That was it. I felt like life was just happening to me rather than I could actually change how my life was going.
yeah. And you brought
Yeah.
up depression. Do you feel like you're still depressed?
Um, Actually, no. I know that things. I still recognize my patterns when something comes up.
Mhm.
Um, my first go to would maybe be to dip down into that cycle, but I'm very quickly now able to turn it around so that I don't know, I can keep it as like this is just one event that's happened and I can control how I react to that. And
Mhm.
it's not a reflection of my whole personality and my whole world. Yeah. So I feel a lot different,
Yeah.
actually.
That's amazing. What do you feel? If you feel a lot different, how do you feel?
I feel empowered. Um, and I'm just focusing more on what my actual goals are in life, and working towards it instead of getting stuck and thinking, oh, this could never happen for me. That's never going to happen. Or I have to wait until this stage to be able to do that. I'm just doing it. And that's the difference. I feel like I can do things,
Yeah.
whereas before I felt like they were impossible.
Oh, I'm so excited you brought this up. We have to talk about this because I'm in the middle, as we're recording, I'm in the, well, not in the middle, but we just ended a 5-day training. Like I did a live 5-day training and I saw a theme today. We did a coaching call and I saw a theme today where people are having this hard, like this, it's like difficult when you're like, okay, I'm learning that my thoughts create my feelings. I'm learning that I can see my thoughts. I'm learning that I can do things about my thoughts. But sometimes the ideal feels so far away and it feels so impossible to get to. So I'm assuming at one point for you, I could be assuming wrong, but I'm assuming at one point it was like you could see the ideal and you could see where you were at, but your ideal felt almost impossible. How did you overcome that? Like, how did you get to believing something that once felt impossible to you?
Um, well, it wasn't quick, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not that way all the time as
Yeah.
well. So I have to keep working at it. But a lot of bridging thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah.
Can you give us an example?
So, uh, okay. So when I think I'm depressed, I've got no confidence, I've got no self-esteem, I'm not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I try to break it down a little bit.
Yeah.
So I just focus on one little thing at a time. It
Yeah.
might be one thought for that day or that week, and I just commit. I write it down. I do my thought model, and I just keep repeating it. And a big thing in your program was that decide, commit, practice.
Mm-hmm.
So I just kind of made the decision that this is what I'm going to be. This is how I'm going to think, even if it's just for today.
Yeah.
And when I commit to it, it just becomes easier to
Yes,
believe.
right? Because the way that I think about committing is like when I commit to a new belief, I'm not making out with my ex beliefs, right? I'm not making like if I'm committed in a new relationship, I'm not making out with my ex boyfriends. So if we're committed to a new thought, we're not making out with ex thoughts.
Yeah, that's right. And they still come up. Sometimes I feel them come up in the background, but I can just immediately send them away. It's
Yeah,
like,
right.
no, I've
Well, it's
committed to this.
like exes come back and we don't have to accept them back, right?
Yeah.
So good. So tell us a little bit. I would love to know what were the three biggest obstacles in your breakup journey?
Well, the biggest one was feeling that I wasn't worth waiting for.
Mm.
Um, yeah, and I did a few coaching calls with you, and sometimes it was like it's hard to put yourself out there and be vulnerable, especially when I'm so used to I have all this fear and I just want to stay safe all the time. But just gradually understanding from his point of view as well,
Mm.
and taking it less personally about me. Like he
Yeah,
had his own thoughts about his life and what he had to do, but that it didn't mean that I wasn't worth it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
So then I
powerful.
sort of changed focus to, instead of worrying what he was thinking all the time, how can I make my life the way I want it to be, instead of feeling frustrated because he's left, that I'm not the way that he wants me to be. Yeah.
Right. Because I mean, it's truly like kind of what happened is like he wanted his life a certain way. So he was going after that. And so now you get to decide, how do I want my life to be? Especially now that you had this big portal of possibility of like what's available to you and going out and then figuring out how to make your life into what you want it to be.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. What else?
Yeah. So the other one was what we talked about, was just stopping myself from identifying as being this certain kind of person, like uh realizing that I could have control over my thoughts. So just practice, uh changing my thoughts and practicing it until it kind of felt more real, and that I had control over that. I didn't just have to accept the first thing that came into my brain.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So powerful. I don't have to accept the first thing that comes into my brain. We talk about that a lot in the program, is like sometimes you can't control the first thought, but you can definitely control the second thought.
Mm,
I love
yeah.
that. What about the
Yeah.
third thing? What was your third thing?
Um, just I think taking responsibility for my own emotions.
Hmm.
So um, instead of waiting for other people to validate me and make me feel good about myself and build me up and feel better, that I could do that myself, and I was responsible for doing that myself. So
Hmm.
I had to step up, really. Yeah.
Yeah, I was responsible for myself. That's good. Because honestly, I almost feel like too, like when we don't take responsibility for ourselves, who is going to, right?
Yes. And I think I was waiting for someone else to come along and fix everything and save me,
Yeah. And I think we can all, everyone listening and myself, we can all identify with that because I fully was like, yeah, no, my ex, the one from 2016, I'm like, he definitely like fixed my life and made my life better. And there are parts of that where it's like, yeah, he did show me what was available to me. But then I was so dependent on him staying in my life and I got so weird and graspy and clingy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about, I mean, and these might go hand in hand with your like the three biggest obstacles. So if there's some of the same, that's totally fine. But if there's anything new, please share with us. But what do you feel like are your three biggest ahas in your breakup journey?
Yeah, okay. So a couple of them have already come up. So the biggest one, of course, is that I have control over my thoughts and I can choose how I want to think about me and my life.
Mhm.
Um, so that was huge for me.
Yeah. And do you feel like I actually have a question again, coming off of the 5 day training? I feel like I can only teach so much in the 5 day training, and like I try to get out as much as I can. But inside of the program, we have 3 months to like consistently work on it together. And I'm curious, like, was it the tools that were helpful to help you not only become aware, but then actually change the thoughts? Or was it more so the coaching or both? Or like, I would love to know just your insight from that.
It was both. The tools are fantastic. And, I had to keep practicing them for them to start to feel more easy and natural.
Right,
Um,
right. Like I think that was
yeah,
like one of the biggest conversations today was like it feels really effortful and like hard for them. But I'm like, there's a difference between like learning something and mastering something, right? Like learning is like learning that you can surf, that surfing's cool, that's amazing. But it doesn't mean you're going to get on a surfboard and go surfing. It doesn't mean that you've gone surfing. It doesn't mean that you have successfully ridden the wave, but the mastery comes through the practice. And
yeah.
you can practice surfing with an instructor or you can practice surfing on your own. And one of them is a little bit, I would say, easier.
Yes. And that, there were times where I just kept trying and trying, and I still had this little voice in the back of my mind saying, yeah, but you actually
Mhm.
think this. Um, but that's where the coaching comes in. And I did a couple of coaching calls with you. But you also gave me the written coaching, which was great because sometimes the time difference sort of
Mhm.
didn't work out with the calls. So I remember you saying in the written coaching, you just have to keep challenging it until it feels real.
Yeah.
Um, so I did, and it took longer, but the more that I did it, the more it came more easily. Yeah,
Yes.
and it just clicked. It
And
just
see,
started clicking.
right. And it starts clicking. And I love that you said that because the more I kept doing it is the more it started clicking. And that's where like the whole time thing to me is not justified. It's like, how often do I practice? It's like, am I someone who goes to the tennis court and practices once a week? Well, it reminds me of skating, to be quite honest. Last year, I did skating, or in 2022, when I did skating, I had one-on-one private lessons only once a week. Whereas this year I picked up twice a week and my skating skill improved so much more because I was doing it more often. The season was the same, but because I was doing it more often, again, practicing more often, and I had more like guidance because I hired a coach to help me, it was very different. Like my skill was so different. He could be like, you need to lean this way or go this way, or like, I can tell that all of your weight is in your front pick. You need to lean backwards. You're not going to fall back, right? Whereas I wouldn't have known those things if he wouldn't have been guiding me through it.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
cool.
And Yeah, and it it's a lot of time that goes into it, to the
Mhm.
practice. And there were some models, where I was putting so many thoughts and feelings into one model, and you were
I
like,
remember
no,
that.
you need to divide it up and do a model for each one. Oh, and I was
Yeah,
like, oh God.
I
But
know. It's like the most frustrating part because you're like, you're trying to like condense it, but it's like
yeah,
I mean, wasn't it so much easier though when you started splitting everything up into smaller segments?
yes, it's much easier to understand.
Hmm.
Yeah, because you're working on one thought at a time. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You get even further. I think that's the thing too, is like, I think we believe like if I put it all in one model, I'm going to get further. Whereas it's actually the exact opposite. If you take it one thought at a time, you get further in a quicker amount of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful. Is there anything else? Ahas?
Uh yeah, so I said it before as well, that decide, commit, practice. That's huge for me, um, in all areas of my life, because I was so scared of trying anything new before, um, because of all the, well, what if this is the wrong decision, um, and now I'm just making a decision and committing to it, um, and realizing, you talk about how there's no good or bad decisions, there's just decisions.
Hmm.
So it's been so hugely helpful because it just stops me thinking about, but, what if this is wrong, or what if I made the wrong choice? I just do it and commit to it, and it's been amazing. Yeah.
I love it. I love deciding, commit, and practice because I think too, the difference between, I don't want to use the word successful people and not successful people, but like the people that I see that are living the life that they want, it's because they decided, committed, and practice. They like execute it. It's like they make a decision and they execute and then they evaluate and then they decide and they execute and evaluate. And so it's like the same process as decide, commit, and practice. It's just like getting the work done, actually doing the things gives you so much more information in life to then redecide and recommit and repractice until you figure out how to get the outcome that you want.
Yeah. And then you're actually doing something to move forward rather
L-
than sitting there doing nothing because you can't decide.
Right? Or sitting there like thinking about it, like all this so much time spent thinking and ruminating and like indecision and inaction. It's painful to be in when you're in it.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
And
So,
the other thing, a big part of the journey was, just practicing gratitude for everything that I do have right now. So instead of wishing all my time away to get to a point in the future, I'm realizing, or just taking the time to be grateful for everything that I have. I've got this time with my kids that I might not have the same in the future. Um, and everything that's happening right now, I'm so grateful for. Yeah.
so proud of you. I mean, that is like number one lesson of 2023 for me was really learning to love and cherish the cards that were dealt. And I think that is like the most powerful lesson we could have because it's almost like the universe handpicked these experiences for us. And we're either sitting there being like, oh, I hate these experiences. Why don't I have these other ones? And then it's like, God, the universe is like, well, I created these ones specifically for you. Why don't you love them? Like
Mm.
it was that lesson is so powerful to me because the more I loved and cherished what I already had, the faster I get the things that I quote unquote want.
Yeah, that's
You
so
know what I
true.
mean?
Mm.
So
Yeah.
wild. Okay. What is it? I would love to know what would you tell someone who is in the spot you used to be, knowing what you know today?
I would say just stick with it. Give yourself the time to do it and stick with it, even though I know for me, there were times when I felt like I was going backwards, and I'd start to worry about it. But don't do that. Like, it's not a linear thing. It's a bit messy. But if you just keep going, it all becomes easier. And not to panic about going back and forth.
Mm.
Yeah.
As long as you keep going, there's no way you won't get there.
Yeah. And even, I've really reduced my desire and attachment. But there was, last week I was a bit sick and I found myself really missing him, first time in a long time. And instead of panicking about that and thinking, oh God, what's happened? I've gone backwards. I just let it be, let it go. And, a week later, I'm feeling fine again.
Right?
So,
It's like
yeah,
indifference, neutrality, and it's like being there for yourself of like, this doesn't mean anything about me.
yeah.
I love that. So good. Amazing. Thank you so much, Melissa. Is there anything else that you would like to share about your breakup journey that you think would be useful for other Bravehearts who are feeling devastated, who are feeling depressed like you were?
Um, just stay in there and be proud of yourself for actually starting this process of doing something towards change. Be proud and kind to yourself and keep going, because it's going to be so worth it.
Yes, I love it. So good. Amazing. Thank you so much, Melissa. I really appreciate you coming on, and I know the Bravehearts appreciate it as well.
Thanks so much, Dorothy.
If you're loving the How to Get Over Your Ex podcast and you'd like to learn how to fast forward getting over your ex without spending months or years feeling angry, jealous, or unlovable, I would love to personally invite you to participate in our free on-demand video training, where we share 3 mind-blowing moments that will forever change your experience with your breakup or divorce. Come check it out at breakupcoachdorothy.com.